I'm Jazzy.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Ethan.
And welcome to the
Project Podcast.
And this week we are discussing social issues, and our topic is, should minors have access to gender-affirming care? But before we get into gender-affirming care, let's talk a little bit about gender identity and what that is.
So, gender identity is basically how you feel on the inside, regardless of what you were assigned at birth.
With that, let's talk a little bit about gender-affirming care.
So, gender-affirming care is care that trans people can get to make them more masculine and feminine. Let's say, for instance, a woman, a biological woman, wanting to become a man. There's various ways they can go about that. One of the ways is HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, and what that does is it gives you supplemented masculine hormones to give you characteristics of a man and gives you more masculine stature. Next, we have top surgery. So if a woman wanted to remove her breast to have the chest that looks like a chest of a man, they could do that. And lastly, we have a full sex change, which changes the main sex organ. And the sex organ wouldn't be functional, but there are more aspects than just the physical side. There's also the social side.
Social media has a big platform in both the benefit and the risk of it. There's the mirror effect, which is younger ones are going to look up to people on there. They have a lot of influencers. They have a lot of influencers, and they could be like, oh, I want to do that. That looks cool. That's something I want to do going off of that. Then there's a side if they actually wanted to make that change, or let people know that they have that change, they have that community to go to and they have that support, and just you can see both outlooks of it.
But there's also negative side.
Yeah, which if they, of course, people are going to express their own opinions and say what they believe, and that can
it opens kids up to peer pressure, which kids can also be peer pressure in school, peer pressure. But a big thing is with social media, a lot of it runs on an algorithm like TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever. So you start liking this one thing, and you get this reinforced opinion, and it keeps getting reinforced, it only shows one side and not the other. So maybe if a kid wanted to become or change their gender, it talks about how good it might be for one person, but it talks about the negative aspects, which there are numerous negative aspects.
And it doesn't really offer a lot of protection for kids, something that their parents might shield them from.
Mm-hmm. And if you're going to go seeking for what you want, you're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also a big part of it.
Oh yeah, peer pressure in school. There's just, a lot of teachers that have their views, and it's kind of in a lot of curriculum nowadays. Like, you take a health class and they have to put it in there because of politically correct ideologies and stuff like that. And it's in a lot of literature as well, I noticed. So I think that just goes back to it being kind of everywhere, and it's hard to protect your kids from that once it's in education.
I think it's dangerous for kids because kids look for a group or a safe place, right? And if there's a kid that's lonely or doesn't have any guidance, they might look for a group that's accepting. And a certain group of trans people might accept them. They might want to become trans, and they might not even want to become trans, but over time that might pressure them to become trans, and they might not think about the risk at all and just do it because kids are impulsive.
I also think they're so young and they don't really have a grasp on that. But then there's a lot of people who disagree, and they think that kids totally know themselves. So it kind of goes either way.
Well, going back to the medical side of it, even if kids totally know themselves, like the surgeries and the HRT in children they're experimental, and they can change the development of the brain. Especially one is puberty blocker, and puberty blockers, they've been around for a long time. They're still very experimental. There's a lot we don't know about them. And the biggest thing is we know it changes the way the brain develops, but we don't know how. And that can be really dangerous. I mean, it can stunt your kids' cognitive growth. And we don't know the health effects it has on the body yet. Even our HRT for the cognitive development, we just don't know because it's not natural. So it can be dangerous, but of course there's benefits too, especially on depression. And that's a huge deal. It stops kids from thinking about suicide. That's massive. But if kids could get therapy and wait it out until their brains develop more, it would be so much safer for them.
It also plays into a role of questioning their identity, especially at a young age, and just them thinking like this will make me happier, and trying to fit into what they believe, what they want to show everybody what they are.
Right.
And back to the social media, like just with a click of a button, you can say like you're he, she, or whatever it like. It's just
Yeah.
One interesting fact I found is 1 in 4 trans people are harassed mentally, and then 1 in 10 are sexually assaulted or raped. And I think a full sex change where you don't even know a person's transgender would help stop that. If you don't know a person's trans, they're not going to get harassed for it, even raped. And 1 in 4 to be harassed and 1 in 10 to be raped or sexually assaulted, that's a huge outrageous percentage, and that it should not be like that.
Right. And even coming from both sides, you can acknowledge that, and you can acknowledge that that's something that's happening.
So politically, let's talk about Title IX that was recently put out there, and a little bit about that.
So Title IX, it stops the harassment of trans people and the segregation, correct? So if a biological man identified as a woman, they could go to the female restroom and nobody can do anything about that. And the same for a biological female identified as a man, which can be good and can stop harassment in some situations, but it can also be really dangerous because there's a lot of bad people in our world and a lot of people who abuse that. And when you're making any law or any rule, you have to acknowledge that, because if a biological man went to the women's bathroom, he could sexually assault women or whatever else. And it's not that everybody would do that, like 95% of people wouldn't, but there's always that risk, and it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
It can definitely be a green card and have people abuse the law.
But delving deeper in the medical side, a lot of it is irreversible, or it's very, very, very taxing on the body. So even hormone replacement therapy, which is pretty mild, even giving out to teens now and adolescents without parents' consent, it's irreversible. It can completely change your face shape. Like I said, more masculine features, and you can't change that back. And then it also can cause hair loss in women because testosterone, which they give out, turns into DHT, which is really bad for your hair. It can cause hair loss really easy. And then with puberty blockers, going deeper again, it puts children at significant risk for lowering their IQ, possibly ruining their futures, depending on how extreme it is. It's a huge risk. And then for the top surgery, that's mainly irreversible unless you can find enough tissue to fix that, but it's a lot it's pretty much irreversible, or there'd be a lot of damage to the chest. And lastly, for the full sex change, it's experimental. If a man becomes a woman, you have to dilate every single day. There's risk for infection. It's really dangerous. Again, it can be really unhealthy. There's a lot of risk to it.